Hi all, welcome to VGuide app and thank you for buying the AAA Advanced Audit and Assurance subject from our app. My name is Prashant Shankar. I am a fellow member of ACCA with more than 10 years of work experience, working for companies like JP Morgan, Goldman Sachs, EY, etc. I have an extensive work experience in audit and assurance, and I also have worked in industries specifically expert in financial management industries, banking companies, etc. I'm your tutor for this particular subject, AAA International course, which is Advanced Audit and Assurance. In this video, we are specifically going to talk about as an introduction to AAA as a subject and the syllabus. We will be talking about what is AAA, what includes in the syllabus of AAA, how to approach this particular examination, and what is the exam structure which will be examined for this ACCA syllabus, and what are the brought forward knowledge you have to carry along with you before you start watching the additional technical videos of AAA. And also we'll be focusing upon certain skill sets like professional skills marks in AAA examination and additional skill sets that's required which will help you pass the exam, etc. So let's quickly delve into the concepts and start learning the introduction of AAA. So let's now learn about the introduction to audit and assurance international subject. We'll be looking forward for the overall aim of the syllabus and what is the brought forward knowledge that you guys have to carry before you start watching the videos of the technical concepts, and what's the syllabus all about, like what all are included in the ACCA examination of AAA. These are the major things that we're going to cover now, and then later we will talk about certain skills that's required to pass the exam and also what is the exam structure. So that's what we're going to cover in this video. So as an introduction to Advanced Audit and Assurance, as the name says, audit and assurance. So here we are learning a specific skill set which we have learned in our skill level exam, which is AA Audit and Assurance as a subject. So in audit and assurance, we learned the basis of what is an audit engagement and what is an assurance engagement. How do we do audits? How do we perform assurance engagements? And what all we need to do to perform the assurance engagements, etc. And specifically talking about audit engagements, etc. This is an advanced version of the AA syllabus that we learned. In this particular syllabus, we are here to analyze, evaluate and conclude on the assurance engagement and other audit and assurance issues in the context of best practices and the current developments. So whatever we studied in AA, it's the same thing that's going to be applied in AAA, because audit as a whole will not change. There's no, I would say like, okay, extra superficial information that is being included here. It's the same. The process of audit remains the same, whatever we learned in AA. But we are going to study in more detail and apply in more detail and conclude in more detail and become a much better professional when it comes to advanced audit and assurance. Now, how do we become a better professional? When you move on from AA syllabus, you will be required to learn the basics and your questions are being framed in a I would say on a bird's eye view. Like you just have to list down certain things. You just have to explain certain things. You just have to explain the risk. You just have to explain the controls, etc. But in advanced audit and assurance, you will be stepping into the shoes of a manager of audit, or maybe in fact a senior manager, or in fact in certain times a partner as well. But in AA you are more of a senior, audit senior and audit junior, etc. But in AAA you are more advanced level. In this advanced level you are required to have a deeper expertise of the knowledge. So in audit and assurance, what is the other knowledge that you carry? So definitely in audit and assurance you have something that is called as financial reporting, like the IFRS standards. In AAA, you will be required to apply the knowledge of SBR. In AAA, you are required to apply the knowledge of SBR. So the main difference between AA and AAA is that the skill sets that's required is what is actually changing. In AA, the skill sets were of basic requirement. You just need to understand the concept and explain and evaluate the concept. But in AAA, you are required to have a deeper knowledge of the concept. You need to explain the requirements in much better way, and you have to give a detailed analysis of the scenario, and hence a higher level of skill sets are required to pass this paper. So if you just carry the knowledge of AA and think that, oh, you know what, AAA I can pass off easily, that's not going to happen. Because an analysis of an expert professional will help you to think in the lines of an auditor and apply in the same way in your exams. This will help you pass the paper. So I, being an expert in this field, I'll be able to show you certain analysis that you will not think as a student. Writing those in those specific ways, writing those answers in those specific ways or in those deeper sense will help you to score the marks, which a student themselves, when they are doing a self-study, will not be able to achieve the perfection. So you should treat AAA as an exercise itself rather than extension of AA. So forget about AA now, come to AAA. And when I say forget about the skill sets that was required for AA. But definitely the technical concepts of AA are in fact added on to AAA. But in a much more better way and in much more deeper way, we are required to apply the knowledge. So in AAA, you will be required to apply the same technical knowledge that you have learned for AA, but when you're writing the exams, you have to write it in more deeper way. To give you a simple example, let us say for example in AA, you are asked to write 8 risk. Here in AAA, you will be asked only to write, you'll be able to identify 4 or 5 risk. In AA, they will specifically tell you there are 8 risk. In AAA, they will not say anything like that. They'll just say identify the risk. But when you start identifying the risk, you will realize that you are able to find only 4 or 5 risk. But the marks will be almost the same. Like it will be 20 marks or it might be 25 marks. So which means for each risk you write, you have to write it in a very much deeper way. That's where you will be scoring the marks. Like you have to quote the standards, you have to explain what the standard says, and you have to write what's the right and relevant explanation for the risk and how you come up with the knowledge and how you present the knowledge to the examiner is very important in this particular examination. So to talking about syllabus, the syllabus is pretty concise because you have studied the basis of audit. You don't have to relearn the basics. You just have to refresh the memory and brush off the memory whatever you have learned in AA. Because as I told you, the process of audit remains the same. No matter if you're studying the base or you're not, or the advanced level, the process remains the same. Only the application of the concepts is what changing in AA versus AAA. The application of the concept is changing. So if you look at the syllabus are pretty much straightforward. There are around 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 parts. Around 9 parts are there, which are divided into regulatory requirement, environment, professional and ethical considerations, quality management, planning and conducting audit of historical financial information, completion, review and reporting, other assignments, current issues and development, professional skills, employability and technology skills. These two are pure case of applications. So these are additional aspects which are specifically tested in AAA, not there in AA. So professional skills and employability and technology skills talks about, professional skills specifically talks about how do you apply yourself the technical knowledge during your exams. There are a few professional skills that you have to demonstrate during the exams, which we will discuss in a bit later. Employability and technology skills is nothing to learn, but is like your application of the knowledge through and practicing your demonstration that you're ready for a job. So, doing the exams through computer-based exams. So you're getting, typing skills, etc. So that itself shows how you are ready for the employability. To talk about the main topics of the syllabus, part A specifically, part A specifically focuses on the legal and regulatory environment and its impact on audit and assurance. Like how the legal and regulatory environment oversee the auditors and how does they impact our practice of audit and assurance engagements, etc. is what is included in part A of the syllabus. In part B of the syllabus, which is prima facie professional and ethical considerations, the ethical practices that you learn as an ACCA professional, how do you apply that on your assurance services and other engagement services is what is dealt in this particular part. You need to demonstrate what is ethical framework talks about, how a professional have to be a professional, when he is practicing an assurance or providing an assurance or a service engagement to the clients, what all he should take care of to be part of the ethical framework of the ACCA is what you are required to demonstrate. So part A is about legal and regulatory framework. Part B is about ethical practices. Part C is a quite important part that is called as quality management. This is very frequently tested during your exam. And this is something an extension of a AA. But in AA, this particular part is not very deeply tested. But in AAA, since it's not tested in AA, it's going to be deeply tested in AAA. And that is all about quality management. As an auditor, how do you ensure that you are delivering the audit services with utmost quality? What all practices and policies and procedures you have implemented in your audit profession, which ensures that the client's audit, how you are conducting, or the client's assurance engagements that you are conducting are of the utmost supreme quality. How do you ensure that you are performing all the required procedures that is required by the ISA, International Standards of Audit, and ensure that there are no unethical practices being delivered to the clients? To ensure those things are not there and ensure that the audit and assurance engagements are going off with the utmost quality, you need to ensure that certain kind of policies and procedures are in place which helps the auditor to deliver the services with utmost quality. In this particular chapters, in this particular part of the syllabus, you will also learn like what the auditor should do before he accepts a client. How do he retains the client, and what all things or what all policies he needs to implement on delivering the assurance services to the clients. So that's what we are gonna talk about. We will have to assess and recommend the certain quality procedures which might be lacking when it comes to a scenario. So you might have to identify the lack of quality management in the scenario and advise it accordingly to the examiner. That's what quality management is all about. It's quite frequently tested in the exam, and ACCA is coming up with a model where they are continuously going to test this. So it's an important part of our syllabus. And the quality management in its own, we don't have various procedures or policies, but it's all about the judgment to ensure that how we maintain the quality of a particular service that we are offering. So it's quite judgmental as well, and involves certain analysis skills where you are required to look at the scenario and identify situations which lacks quality of services. So that's part A, B and C. When it comes to part D, we are specifically talking about planning and conducting an audit of the historical financial information. So in this particular part, you're required to identify the work required to meet the objectives of audit assignments and apply the international standards of auditing. So in this part, majorly, we are going to talk about, the process of the audit. We are going to talk about the process and overview of the audit. So this is where the actual work of the auditor comes into place. What does the auditor do? He plans the audit, assess the risk of material misstatement. So you have to, assess the audit risk, the business risk, etc. You need to start the evidence and testing procedures for the audit, certain considerations and how do you collect the evidences, plan the audit, testing of the internal controls, those things are tested here. Also, audit procedures and obtaining the evidence, substantive procedures. What are the substantive procedures you will implement to gather the evidence and to ensure that your transaction is true and fair is what is also being included here. How do we use others, the expertise in an audit where we are going to give an opinion? So let's say, for example, if there is an expert opinion required, let's say, for example, IT, information technology, do we use an IT expert? Let's say, revaluations of the asset, do we use an valuation expert? So how do we use them? When do we use them? What are the procedures to use them? What are the evidences we are going to gather by using them? And finally, group audits, which is an extension of our AA. We have not tested it in AA, so this is a complete new syllabus in AAA. Group audits is all about consolidation, financial position, consolidated statement of profit or loss. How do we audit a company that is a group entity, which has parent as well as subsidiaries or associates? How does an auditor approach a company which is having multiple subsidiaries spread across various parts of the world? That also we need to learn in this particular part. And part D is a bit of a deeper part. It involves around 4 chapters and that's the biggest part of the syllabus. And it's a quite important part because this part is where we are learning the deep testing of our syllabus, and we are learning the entire process of the audit. So definitely this is the most important part of the syllabus, which involves us learning from the planning of the audit till the evidence collection and in fact the group audits as well. So a very important part to learn in a deeper way. Multiple chapters are being tested in this particular part. The next one is part E, is an extension of our process of audit, where in part D we learned about planning and risk assessment and substantive procedures, etc. In this part we are closing down the audit, so we are almost completing the audit. So what are the procedures we implement before we complete the audit? What are the final reviews we perform? What are the reporting requirements? How do we prepare the audit reports? How do we report to those charged with governance? What are the subsequent events testing and going concern testing we do? And etc. What are overall analytical reviews of the financial statements, etc. is what being mentioned in this particular part. This part is relatively the easier part, but definitely when it comes to application will involve a greater degree of application, because this is where, in a scenario you will be given situations like the company is doing something wrong and you will have to advise what kind of audit opinion you will give. Is it a modified opinion or unmodified? If it's unmodified, how will you gather the evidence and how will you give the conclusion? If it is modified, how will you give the conclusion? A lot of things. How will you perform the final review? What are the aspects you look at when it comes to subsequent events? How do you give a report to those charged with governance? What all factors you consider? So a lot of application related items are included. Even though theoretically speaking, there are various processes that are involved, this particular chapter is more about application from the scenario themselves. But in part B, you have to learn quite a lot of process, and the process have to be implemented in your answers as well. But in part E is more of judgmental and application of the process, and how do you advise to the client as well as advise to the examiner based on the scenario and applying the technical knowledge. What are the process you will follow? Part F is all about other engagements like non-audit services. What are the other assurance services that we have? We have specific assignments like due diligence, review of interim financial reports, prospective financial information? What are forensic audits? What are social, environmental, and sustainability? What is integrated reporting? How do we audit the performance of a public sector, etc.? Even though this chapter, in this particular syllabus, there are a lot of chapters being covered, like chapter 12, chapter 13, chapter 14 and 15, around 4 chapters are being covered. This is relatively a simpler syllabus to go through. Even though they are tested, they are not tested for a heavy weightage of marks, and it's pretty much easier to understand and easier to apply as well. Only one area that we need to specifically look for is integrated reporting, because it's a new concept that's being developed over the past few years, and they are becoming a bit more prominence, and hence there could be situations where they are going to test your knowledge based on this part of the syllabus. And the part G is all about the current issues and development, and in the current issues and development we are required to learn what are the current issues and recent developments that have happened in terms of the provision of audit related and assurance services. This is one specific part where we'll be talking about what are the professional and ethical developments that have recently come, and also we're going to talk about what are the current issues that's happening around the world. And this situation is more of a practical manner. You will have to read a few technical articles to understand this particular part of the syllabus, which we will go through. And we will also discuss the current issues while we are preparing for the exams themselves through our revision kit questions. And the last part, the last 2 parts, which is part H and part I. In part H, we are required to apply professional skills, and we will discuss the professional skills in some time. This part is around 20 marks. There is nothing specific for you to learn. It's more about how do you apply yourself during the time of examination. So it's all about how do you communicate your answers, how do you analyze the answers, how do you analyze the situation, how do you maintain professional skepticism and judgment which is required for an auditor, how do you maintain the commercial acumen for the examination is all about in this particular chapter. And finally, the employability and technology skills. Again, there's nothing chapter specific that you have to learn. It's all about how you use the technology and computer, how you navigate your computer screens for your exam requirements, how do you use the tools, and how do you prepare yourself for the data, how you gather the information, etc. This employability and technology skills, again, we can learn through our approach to examination itself, where we'll be answering the revision kit questions or past exam questions using our CB platform. You will automatically get the employability and technology skills. Even when you're practicing for your exams, when you're writing your answers, go and write it in a CB platform. Open your practice platform and write it so that automatically the employability and technology skills is inculcated within you. You don't have to separately study for it. So now let's look at what are the links to other exams for AAA. So AAA is linked to 2 exams specifically that you have learned in ACCA, which is SBR, Strategic Business Reporting, which is a professional paper which talks about IFRS standards, accounting, etc., which has an indirect relationship with AAA, because whatever you learn as an accounting IFRS knowledge will get tested in AAA, because audit is all about ensuring whether the accounting have been done properly or not, whether the IFRS standards have been applied properly or not by the organization. So AAA is all about testing whether the application of the IFRS standard has been appropriate. So definitely learning of the standards and application of those standards is very important. Definitely there is a direct relationship for AA. Whatever process and procedures that you learn in AA, it's the extension version that you're going to learn in AAA. There are additional knowledge that you're required where you have to apply the knowledge in a deeper way and get further additional skill sets compared to AA, but it's definitely an extension version of AA for sure. That's what the relationship with other subject is all about. And the chapters that we have is primarily 15 chapters. Part A is completely one chapter, chapter number 1. Part B, which is professional and ethical consideration, consists of 2 chapters, chapter 2 and 3. Part C, quality management, is about chapter 4 and chapter 5. Part D is 4 chapters, 6, 7, 8 and 9. Part E is 2 chapters, chapter 10 and 11. And part F is 4 chapters again, 12, 13, 14 and 15. But part F is expected to be completed much faster because it's more of other services, etc. So it's nothing very deep you have to learn, but certain skill sets that you need to still acquire. Current issues and development are all we have a chapter, but it's all about application skills and learning through technical articles, etc. Part H, there are no chapters. It's more of how you approach the exams, and part I is also the same way, how you approach the exams. The exam is completely computer based. It's a CBE based exam and all professional papers are computer based. And with respect to the approach to the examining, the syllabus consists of 35% of knowledge and 65% of application. So it's not just about reading the textbook or going through the videos, but simultaneously you need to apply the knowledge that you have gathered to your revision kits, to your practicing of the exam questions. So on a consistent basis, we are not just going to learn the topics, but we will be pausing of learning the topics, but then continuing to learn the application of those topics in the examination format. So we will take questions from the revision kit, and whatever after a bunch of parts have been completed, primarily part A, B, C and D, we will look at how do we apply that during the course of the revision kit questions as well as the past exam questions directly from the CBE platform. Because it's not just about learning the knowledge, and here knowledge is only 35%, but 65% is all about how do you apply that in an exam scenario. So simultaneously, along with our explanation of the chapters and completing the technical articles or technical chapters, we will also be learning how do we apply those technical parts into our past exam papers as well as revision kit questions. The format of the exam is pretty much simple and straightforward. There are 2 parts totally, section A and section B. Section A consists of just one question. It's a one question, but it's a comprehensive case study. This is worth 50 marks. And this is primarily focuses for the planning stage of the audit. Primarily talks about the planning stage of an audit, but it could be for single entity as well as it could be for group of entities. Or it could be also for several audit clients, like multiple audit clients will be included, but primarily it will be part of the planning stage of the audit. So planning stage of audit are what all items? So planning stage of audit specifically talks about your part A, regulatory environment, how the audits are governed, how the auditors are governed, money laundering, what is money laundering, what are laws and regulations with respect to audit, etc. How do we apply the professional and ethical considerations are also included. The quality management process that we need to implement before we even start the audit or while we are pursuing the audit, and after we have completed the audit, the quality management procedures. Planning and conducting an audit of the historical information, which is in this particular part of the syllabus, you will be specifically asked on D1, which is risk assessment, with respect to risk assessment, which could be also for group audits as well. So primarily the section A, which is the 50 marker question, consists of 4 parts, which is section A, B, C and D of your syllabus, which is nothing but laws and regulations, quality management, professional ethics. Quality management is part C, professional ethics and consideration is part B, and D, which is planning and conducting of the audit, etc. And in planning and conducting of the audit, it's primarily they will be asking about is risk assessment, and risk assessment is one of the main and important topic that is being tested in this 50 marker question. In AA, we learned only about audit risk. Like we have to apply or identify only audit risk. In this particular examination, AAA, we will also have to apply for business risk as well. We will also have to apply for business risk as well. So not just audit risk, but as well as business risk are also required to be answered. So you will have to apply and study for business risk as well. You have to identify various business risks and as well as explain about the business risk. And even when you are identifying the audit risk, in AA it was primarily simpler, because you just have to apply, okay, what is the audit risk and what is the audit response. You just have to write maybe 1 or 2 sentences for each of the risk, identification and explanation why it is a risk. And you just have to write 1 or 2 responses. Here, each risk you have to explain in multiple paragraphs. So it's a bigger explanation that is required. It shows the analysis and application skills. So as I told you before, 65% is application. So in that case, you have to apply the audit risk in a deeper manner. Like you have to explain what is a risk. You have to explain with examples and with the standards taken directly from the scenario and from the case study, why it is considered as a risk, what calls it for a risk, what is lacking, which could potentially arise to a situation where there could be a misstatement in the financial statement. You will also have to, explain about the responses, like multiple responses, 3 to 4 responses you have to give, like how you're going to tackle this risk, etc. Maybe you might not be asked for responses also, but you might be asked to identify the risk alone and explain the risk. So you have to write it in a deeper way and explaining in deeper the accounting treatment as well. So the accounting treatment have to be explained in a much deeper way. You have to, if possible, quote the standard and explain the concepts of the standard, what the standard talks about and why as per the standard this is right or wrong. That also you have to explain very deeply. So definitely it involves a deeper explanation, and that's where the application skills comes. There are up to 10 professional marks. So 10 professional marks, I'll put it as PM. 10 professional marks will be available for question 1. And this 10 professional marks will be assessed through 4 skills of yours. Through 4 professional skills of yours. And what are the professional skills? We'll learn in a minute or so, but this is how you're going to approach it. There could be other syllabus areas they could be tested, maybe from section E, but primarily this particular section is covered majorly for section A to section D of your syllabus, and majority of the times it's from the risk questions, and when it comes to risk questions, you are asked to identify the risk, audit risk as business risk, and explain it in a deeper way. The second section of the questions consists of 2 marks, which is 25 marks each. So total 3 questions. Question 1, 50 marks. Question 2, 25 marks. Question 3, 25 marks. 100 marks. So section B is 2 compulsory questions with 25 marks each, which will be predominantly from other part of the scenario, and these are short scenarios. It's not going to be a lengthy case study, but it will be short scenarios. In section A, you will also be given, I forgot to talk about that. In section A, you will also be given certain examinable contents. Like you will be given an email extracts from the partner. You will be given financial information. You will be given certain other extracts of working papers that has been done, etc. So you have to use your lot of analytical procedures. You have to read the email and give a briefing note to the partner, etc. So the format and all is very important. That's where the professional marks also comes into. And then the section B is the remainder of the exams, will predominantly comes from one question mainly from section E of the syllabus, okay, where you will need to talk about the completion, review and reporting part. So one question is definitely from the section E. The other 25 marks question can be of a broad category, like it's going to be a broad category. It's not going to be specific to sections, but sections, it can range from section A, B, C, D and F. And why not E is because E is already being tested in the other question. So two questions, one questions will be predominantly from section E, review and reporting completion of the audit. And the other sections could be inclusive of all the broader categories, section A, B, C, D as well as F. And in D, they're going to talk specifically about audit procedures. Like what are the audit procedures you're going to implement to gather the evidences, what are the evidences that you need, what are the procedures that you're going to implement, etc. is what going to be asked in this second 25 marker question. Again, each question have professional marks which is involved. Each will have professional marks which is involved, and up to 5 marks for each question will be there. So again, 10 marks for the two questions that's being asked here. So 5 professional skills marks for each of the question, and each question will have a minimum 2 professional skills that you are required to apply, which is analysis and evaluation, and professional skepticism and commercial acumen. So these part of the professional marks you will have to apply. So that's what this exam pattern is all about. Pretty much straightforward and simple, but it's all about the application. You will get to the groove of writing the exams only through application of these questions into the application of the questions during the time of the examination. Quality management is assessed through various procedures, and various exam pattern itself, they'll include the quality management. Like in section A can also be asked, section B can also be asked. Current issues are also will be inculcated into the exam pattern, and they will be asking it from various parts as well. So total 100 marks, 2 questions, 80 marks is for the exam, 20 marks is professional marks, and 65% is the application, 35% is the knowledge. So you need to have a lot of practice, read a lot of questions, apply a lot of the theories, study a lot of questions, and technically write the CB questions, practice it before the exam to score more than 50 marks for your passing. Analysis of the past exams, as you can see, the majority of the exams, ethics is very important. So they are frequently asking questions from ethics. They will frequently ask from ethics, and that's quite frequently tested during the case of examination. Quality management is also very frequently asked, but definitely risk assessment is a sure shot question, because as you can see, the risk assessment is asked in part of question 1 for all the examinations over the past. So risk assessment, which is chapter 6, is very important for your examination. And even as you can see, audit reports, explanation about the audit reports, what kind of opinion you will issue, because that's where the judgment involves. Ultimately, that's the objective of an auditor, to give an opinion on the financial statements. So what opinion you will issue, how will you issue the opinion, is very frequently tested during the examination. And that's very important as well. And other parts are all scattered here and there. So this particular table is here is not to give you an idea, okay, I will study only these chapters and I will pass the paper. It's just to give you a fair idea that, okay, these are the major areas that's frequently being tested, etc. So now let's talk about professional skills and how these professional skills marks can be scored for a AAA examination. From September 2022 onwards, this particular professional skills marks are being introduced into the examination. Up to 20 marks are available for it, and to score you cannot study, you can read as many as chapters from the textbook. You can read various textbooks that is available, like revision, BPP, Kaplan, or ACCA's study hub, etc. Whatever you can do, you can read it, but still you will not get it. Professional skills is all about application of your mind, your quality, and incorporation of your technical knowledge into your examination. It's not just about reading the topics and writing it as it is. Professional skills marks can be scored into 4 broader categories. analysis and evaluation, communication, professional skepticism and judgment, commercial acumen. Commercial acumen. These are 4 skills which are introduced in a series of skill checkpoints. Like you are required to apply this skills over the various checkpoints as you study for the examination. In CBE, you can also demonstrate your employability and technology skills, but that's automatically you will get it when you practice for your CBE examinations. But let's try to understand what are these 4 skills all about. Let's first start with C, the communication part. As an ACCA professional, communication is very important for a student. Now, when we say communication, what is communication all about? Expressing yourself. Like what is going through your mind. If the other person have understood it, that's what is called about communication. Let us say, for example, I am explaining a point. You've understood the point. That is what is communication all about. So, whenever you are communicating, it's not just important to use the language very precisely, but it's also very important to express yourself very clearly and concisely and convincingly. How do you do that? And how do you develop it? To do that, you have to apply the technical concepts and explain the technical concepts in your examination. I've seen many students writing half-hearted answers. Like they write one point, but they do not explain their point in a deeper way. They say that, okay, you know what? This is the concept, but they do not say why the concept is being framed or why the concept is being in this manner and how you relate it to the scenario. That's where the half-hearted answers comes in. In terms of risk, they explain what is a risk they have identified. And they might write it directly, what is the response. But they never write why. That's a communication, that's a miscommunication. Why the risk is being mentioned here clearly. And what part of the scenario indicates that there is a risk here. And this risk is part of this scenario. What part of the scenario, what sentence or what area of the scenario clearly states that the risk that you have identified is relatable. That's what is very important for you to score the marks. Lack of communication can confuse the target audience. What are you trying to achieve? And if you say something half-heartedly, an examiner will not understand what you're trying to explain. So it is very important that you inform the target audience with a clear format. Like the format that I follow to always write your answers is just this 3. What, why, and how. What is the issue, why it is an issue, and how do we resolve it? Or what is your approach towards it? If you have answers in your explanation, if you have answers to these 3 major questions, you will definitely score marks. What, why, and how. And the format is not just about writing in this manner, but also about fulfilling the formatting requirements during the explanation of answers. To give an example, in question 1, you will be asked to prepare briefing notes. You will have to write it in a briefing note format itself to the partner. Otherwise, you will not score marks. You have to give a logical argument. The second part is giving a logical argument. Why will cover this logical argument? The question why will cover this logical argument. Let's say you're writing what is the risk. You have to also write why you have considered that risk and how does it relate to the scenario. That explains for a logical argument. An appropriate use of the technology, your computer-based exams will fulfill for that. So communication is very important and very precise. You can use your simple words, but at the same time try to use a lot of jargons of the AAA, like materiality, audit risk, business risk, professional skepticism. Those kind of technical words, you can use it while you're explaining your answers, will definitely help you to score the professional marks. The next one is commercial acumen. Commercial acumen means not just sticking to the syllabus, having a broader knowledge or a broader explanation of the concept. Like awareness of wider business and external factors that affects the business, and use commercially sound judgment and insight to resolve an issues and exploit the opportunities. You need to consider the practical considerations, like how a particular technical part is relevant practically, how a business gets affected because of a certain factors, how the auditor gets affected because of a certain factors, what are the risks if you have identified, how that risk, if let's say for example you have identified a business risk, how that automatically develops into an audit risk and become a constraint for the auditor. Let's say for example the business is not doing well, the business is failing, the business is incurring losses. That is definitely a practical consideration. If you see, okay, the business is actually having losses compared to the last year and they continue to have losses, you can definitely say that the business is having losses, but that's a business risk. How does it develop and to a constraint for the auditor? Is when the business is incurring a losses shows an indication of going concern. That going concern, if they are having uncertainty, have they recognized the uncertainty of going concern and included as part of their notes to the financial statement for the going concern is the constraint. Now, if they have not done that, there is a risk, audit risk there. So that is your commercial acumen. The additional part of the commercial acumen also talks about giving opportunities, giving how they can better their business or how they can definitely develop other aspects which will help the auditors to audit the financial statements in a much better way. You can also bring in external factors which you have seen over practical issues that have happened outside your examinations here while explaining a concept. To give you an example, the fraud considerations, you can bring in a lot of fraud cases that have happened over the past in real scenarios and bring in to your answers and explain the point as well. How UK's regulators are fining and penalizing, giving fines and penalizing a lot of big four auditors over the past few years because of lack of ESA is something a commercial acumen you can talk about when you're writing your explanation in case of laws and regulations and regulatory requirements, which is part of the part A. So these are the aspects that you can bring in when you are writing for the answers. Like you can talk about the external factors and real life scenarios when you are explaining the concept and link it to the case study that is given to you. The next two skills are specific to the scenarios. Definitely the number one is analysis and evaluation. You need to draw objective and logical conclusions from both quantitative and qualitative information as well. Quantitative is about the analytical procedures you will follow, performing ratio analysis, checking whether the ratio analysis suggests any audit risk, etc. And the qualitative information, considering the quantitative information, how does it impact the various stakeholders and the auditors themselves, and apply that evaluation while you are explaining the answers. So whenever you pick up the part or whenever you pick up the analysis part of the information, you explain to the examiner that this is how I've analyzed the situation and this is the impact to the stakeholders or the users of the financial statement, or this is the impact to the auditors. So it's not just about writing the analysis. It's also about assessing the impact to the stakeholders. It's also about applying the analysis to the situation that is given and taking the answers directly or the sentences directly from the scenario and writing it in your answers and explaining them. How do they impact the auditors and stakeholders, and what do they mean when they are giving this data? Like why this data is given to you. One point I always tell the students is that never consider or never take any sentence that is given in the scenario to the face value. You need to understand that there is some meaning attached to it. There is some reason why they are giving this particular sentence in the scenario. You need to always question yourself why they have given this sentence. There is some relevance to it. Each sentence has a certain kind of a relevance to the answers that you are writing. The moment you think from that angle, you will be able to better your answers when you are explaining that part. So definitely, analysis is also important, and always think of the situation that's given to you and read the scenario in a much deeper way. And the last and never the least part is professional skepticism and judgment. The most important aspect that is required for an auditor is professional skepticism and judgment. Professional skepticism means questioning, challenging the information. You might be given an information, but that might not be enough for you. You should have the guts to tell and write it in your answer. The information that is given in the scenario is not enough. We need additional information. You need to present it saying that, you know what, I cannot come to a conclusion with the information given. I need further additional information. What are the further additional information should also be given. There might be certain conclusions that would be drawn in the scenario. You will have to challenge them. You have to challenge the opinions, questions of what the approach that is being taken, and take informed decision, which is called as your judgment. Read all the necessary information and then explain based on the scenario why you are coming to the conclusion. That is what is called as informed decision. Consume all the information, consume all the data from all the various aspects, and then by pointing out all the various aspects, you come to a conclusion. This is the reason why I have presented to you this facts and information, and this is my conclusion based on this facts and information. That is what is called as informed decision. And all of these professional skills can be developed through constant practice of your exam kit questions. The moment you do a lot of questions, you will automatically develop a sense of application skills, which will help you to automatically incorporate the professional skills. Definitely in the initial questions you do, you will struggle because you do not have the expertise, neither you have a practical aspect or practical experience. So I will help you there as a faculty to help you understand how you can apply this professional skills while reading a scenario itself, and how can you better your answers by writing the answers in your for your AAA exams. So what I will do is I will write a lot of answers while explaining the exam kit solutions, and I will be explaining those to you directly.